Okay, seems that we are good to go. Wasim, can you confirm that you can hear my voice and see my screen normally?
Yes, Hicham, all is clear. Go ahead.
That's all right.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. I've taken this opportunity to join our 13th webinar organized by the ELTA Virtual University. I'm so glad that you've taken the time. You've afforded a similar chance to come and share with us your experience, share with us your thoughts and your opinions for a similar interesting topic. Today's webinar is going to be covering one of the world's simple technologies, one of the world's important and emerging subjects all over the last 20 years, integration of ICTs in teaching and learning. Before I go to the details, before I go to the slides, I just would like to remind you that the webinar series of the 13th sample is going to be covered in 3 sessions. The first session is today, the 16th, the second is the 23rd, the last session is going to be on the 30th. And you see the agenda, so I'm not going to go through it very much in details, but just for today's agenda, we're going to cover a general outline about the ICTs, the definition when it comes particularly to the general context as well as to the English language teaching context. Later on, the characteristics of ICT in a general way, and particularly on all what is related to the English language teaching and classroom management. Obstacles to using ICT effectively. This is one of the most common interest for the teachers, especially at this very moment. And the changes in teaching and learning as a result of ICT. And by the end, we're going to discuss altogether the relationship that the ICT has been able to make with a new educational perspective. As Wasim already told a while ago, that during the webinar you are going to feel free to ask your questions. You can actually share your thoughts. We're going to have a time for discussion in every single slide. Right. So talking about information communication technology as a general concept, which we know that it is kind of an extensional term of informing with information technology that is going to stress the role of unified communications and the integration of new telecommunication tools like telephone lines, like wireless Wi-Fi and computers, as well as new other enterprise and software directories, storages, audiovisual systems that are going to enable the users to store, transmit, and manipulate any information. In our context, which is the education, which is the English language teaching, ICT is actually a mode of education that is or that uses information and communication technology to support, to enhance, and to optimize the delivery of information to our students or to our learners. Worldwide research has shown that ICT can lead to an improved student learning and better teaching methods. As you see, I've divided the kind of the term in general to 2 parts. The first part here down on the right and left side, it's the information technology, which actually covers the study of the electronic equipment, or especially things related to computer, as I've mentioned a while ago, to storing, analyzing, sending out the information. Well, when I say sending out the information, in our context, we are talking about teaching, we are talking about delivering information and knowledge to our learners. When it comes to communication technology is actually the process of sending, the process of receiving, and the process of exchanging information with our learners. Generally talking, as I've mentioned before, the communication technology in education is used as a mode, is used as a new concept of education, which means that all the improvements and all the things, kind of the materials or the concept, the perspectives which are related to this ICT are going to lead to new improved student learning and a better teaching methods and processes. But when it comes to literacy, talking about literacy in a general overview, it actually involves the use of the digital technology. Like, for example, you use your computers, you use smart boards, using new tools, access management, Google Classroom, so anything really that's got relation with technology, for the sake of managing, for the sake of accessing, and for the sake of integrating a new evaluation method, so that you can create a new information in a way, in a functional way that really suits a certain society, that suits a certain group of people. But as I said, in our context, we are talking about students, we are talking about English language teaching in classrooms, especially. So I'm sure that lots of you know about what ICT means, but today's topic, certainly the first session, is going to be kind of a general overview, some of the thoughts, some of the opinions, and how really we teachers around the world perceive this new item that's got kind of widely in our profession, and at the same time the obstacles and how the teachers could really provide some remedies on how to make sure that implementing a certain concept like ICT in our classrooms or in our country, what it needs and what it doesn't need, or what are the remedies we really think that are available, that are possible to work with. As I've mentioned before, please feel free to stop me to ask any question you've got while I'm walking through the slides, so that we can discuss together, so that we can get kind of a better insight and different opinions, different information. Right. Before we start talking about the characteristics, like generally talking ICTs or CPDs or CPD or I don't know, ICTM or ITSM, all these tools, all these new concepts that have come over the 20 last years, they've got characteristics, they've got advantages, they've got disadvantages, they've got some similarities. The same for the ICT, it's got some particular characteristics which we are going to see today altogether. Here I'm not talking about a general concept or general context, but here I'm talking about the English language teaching concept, or in the English language teaching context. So one of the first, I don't want to say first or the best or whatever, but I started with it, which is efficiency. And some of you would agree, some of you would disagree. It really depends on how do you perceive it. It really depends also on the knowledge you've got about the ICTs. But really, from a perspective of experience, using an ICT tool or concept in our classes, particularly in the last 10 years, where really technology got over its stamps and stove it over with new innovations, with new creativity models, all over implemented in different schools, in different institutions. I find that ICT is characterized by being efficient. So we're talking about efficiency in terms of speed, in terms of fast, in terms of the cost. When I say cheaper, I do not mean that it's cheap for a teacher. I do not mean that it's cheap for a certain school. But as a methodology, it is a cost-saving concept, which is going to replace lots of efforts, which is going to replace kind of different old-fashioned methodologies, which were very much manual, and they were cost-saving because the teachers at that time had to do overtime, had to work over the weekend, had to make some extra work and extra efforts for that. And at times they've got fewer steps. So in the past, teachers really used to take kind of hours and hours, and they do kind of dozens and more of steps in order to reach a certain objective. But at this very moment, using ICTs, it's really like it's saving time for you, it's saving efforts, and it's being more creative, and it takes you less time and less efforts and less steps to reach any objective you're going to set. And at the same time, it less people. So the more you've got technology, the less the number of teachers is going to be decreased. And less paperwork, certainly. The ICT is really replacing the paperwork, is really replacing that manual work, that physical we used to do in the very past years. Perfect. I will pass to the effectiveness, innovation, then I can open a discussion about your thoughts, about your opinions, and what do you think also about these three main elements I've mentioned in characteristics of ICTs. The second one is actually the effectiveness. We generally find it is kind of a general approach, a general agreement that using ICT to teach is very effective. How? Of course, it gives a chance to the teacher to be able to innovate, to be able to personalize, to customize your work, and to make it the way really it suits your learners. You can provide kind of the time, you can provide the effort, or whatever level or degree of information you really need that your students get, or you think that your students are in need to get. It's also transparent and searchable, which means there is absolutely no stuck information somewhere, as we've mentioned, kind of paperwork related things. So using technology, using these new tools, it's going to be very transparent, which means that everyone is able to access to the same information. Yeah, there's going to be kind of an equal opportunity of learning. And at the same time, it's going to be searchable, which means that you've got an information at your complete disposal. So you just need to look for it. And certainly by looking, you're going to find. There is absolutely no way that some information, due to some ICT restrictions or policies, are going to be hidden or whatever. But we're talking about a normal concept. We're talking about our English language teaching concept and context. That's why it's kind of open. We've got also, in terms of effectiveness, it's interactive. It's the minimized number of errors, and at the same time the customization. Repeated for the second time. These are very, very important elements which really characterize the ICTs. When I say it's most interactive, so you can control the way you have your students interacting with you. You can control the tempo, you can control the degree, the speed, as well as the efficiency you've got in your class while being in a certain environment. Fewer errors, which means that certainly it's going to be there are really lots of automatic processes, lots of automatic tools which help students, for example, learn to speak, learn to write, learn to correct, to do self-correction, auto-correction, and other customizing softwares, tools, and applications. Last and not least, innovation. Actually, ICT is part of a new innovation word. We've got really new products, new technologies, new ideas in terms of computers, in terms of applications, in terms of softwares, deployments, debuggers, configurations, which are really used just for the sake of facilitating the learning, trying to exploit the connection, whether it's a geographical connection or it's a human-based connection. It is a real-time access information, so it's going to help the people get to the same information, get to the same same benefits of a certain learning process by a certain dispersed of a wide range of acquisition and manipulation of this information we provide to our learners. These actually stay some of the characteristics we've got about ICTs, and of course most of the characteristics we tend to see them are good characteristics, but for some of the teachers or some other people in the world, some policymakers, some academicians, they think that such characteristics that are not good, and this is one of the things we really are going to discuss in the very coming slides. So I'm asking a question now. I don't know, how do you agree, or how far do you agree with these three major concepts of characteristics of the ICTs? And at the same time, what do you think the importance of ICT at this very moment in the Algerian institution of education? Anyone to share with us his or her thoughts? Hello, do you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, go ahead. What's your name?
name is Rahmi Al-Asli. I am a teacher of English at high school. So I think that ICT also saves time and it tackles all the learning styles. So if your learners are visible, you can see, they can hear, they can do different things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the three elements I've mentioned in terms of characterizing the ICT, do you find that really one of them is not applicable at this very moment at your context, for example, at your school's context or the general institution in Algeria's context? Hello?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
No, that's okay. I said, do you agree or disagree with any one of these elements which are characterizing the ICT as a general concept in your country or in the institution you work for? Like, for example, I've mentioned before, I've been discussing with some teachers, and they say that ICT is not cheaper. It is not cheap for me as a teacher. So they disagree with kind of some of the items of having efficient ICT or having ICT as an efficient tool.
Well, I totally agree because ICT is not limited to data show or bringing a laptop. The ICT can be a mobile telephone of the student or and they can back then and it is cheaper than using paper.
I'm sorry, Rahil, but we did not hear you. I don't know, maybe you've got kind of a connection problem, but it's unfortunately not possible to hear what you've said. You just going to come back to us once more once you've got a stable. Hello, good afternoon. What's your name, please?
Job English at high school. So I wanted to tell you that ICT is something that is not new, but in our country we are still fighting against technology concerning communication and information in our schools. It's not so something obvious since we don't have good connections to the internet. For the problem is more hardware than software in our country. But I think that it's not only in Algeria, but in other countries too. Yeah, but it is something that we are going to get with time. I have here a quotation given by Schopenhauer, who said that every tool passes through three stages before it is recognized. In the first, it is ridiculed. So we see ICT as something. Oh, what is it? Oh no, never. So, and the second, it is opposed. Oh, it doesn't provide social equity, and people in our country cannot afford it. So we oppose it. In the third, it is regarded as self-evident. So I think that very soon we are going to see ICT technology in school as something very evident, and even distant teaching. Distant teaching with the COVID that we have now. So teachers are using Zoom, are using Moodle, they are using, as we are using here, Microsoft in order to connect with us. So we are going to see ICT as something very evident. This is what I was going to tell you. So it is a must. It is a must to our time and yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sundus. Absolutely, I agree with what you've said. Hello, what's your name and go ahead, please.
Hello, sir. My name is Faris Fattash. I'm a teacher teacher at the University of Sydney. My major is economics. First, I'm very grateful for you for this initiative. It's very important, especially in this special time with the pandemic of coronavirus. This topic is very important because in our field of teaching, we must or we have to put this new technology and use it for teaching. I guess the most important global problem in our there is not enough hardware, and as well as there is not enough training for the software to how to use this new kind of technology. We have to focus on this new concept or this new approach, because ICT it's very crucial in this special time to continue providing our students and teaching. We have to the authorities are responsible to put in field the right strategy to use and to use this new kind of technology. Sir, I'm very sorry because my English is not very well, but I try to give you the right idea.
You've done already. You've given me the right idea. You've already read my mind. You've got actually to a point which I was going to mention in this slide, which is the the obstacles to using ICT effectively. Who's there?
Yeah, it's right. So I just want to add something that just when we make it an obstacle, it is an obstacle. Sometimes we can work with the things we have, like telephones, mobiles of the students, and available things at the school. We can also get training or work on ourselves as teachers for professional development to learn about ICTs and so on. We can get help from computer teachers and so on.
Absolutely. Well, the way you consider it is really important, but we need to see as well the impetus. We need to see the initiative and the policy, which is part of kind of implementing a similar process. I've got kind of some problems to hear you, but I don't think that you need to open your camera. I don't know who is that exactly. Yasser, maybe. You don't need to open your cameras, so I actually focus only on the slide sharing. Yasser, do you mind if you switch off your camera so that the others actually are going to be able to see the share screen, and at the same time kind of limit for them the connection so that they can get it accessible normally? Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so yes, I've heard Sundus, I've heard Rahil, I've heard the university teacher. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, I just got over it. But teachers, students, or parents generally who have got kind of an interest in technology integration very frequently, they've been overwhelmed by providing kind of and assessing the quality of the technological instruction. But we see we've got 4 elements, and all these obstacles are divided to two major sides. The first one is the implementation failure. That's what Rahil has said exactly, and what the Fadil, or I don't know the name of the university teacher, I'm sorry for forgetting your name, it's all about the lack. Faris, right?
Yes, right, Faris.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Faris. As I've mentioned, yeah, it's all about some lack, it's all about some loss. Yet we don't have hardware, we don't have software. Yes, we understand, but if the way I've done the presentation, actually, it's the It's in collaboration with some Algerian teachers who have given me an insight and real context. And here it is, really it goes. When it comes to the impetus of technology initiatives terms and the educational policymakers, the vision is not adequately communicated to the teachers. The success and the technological initiative is actually kind of is falling into jeopardy. And generally talking, the implementation of technology into any educational program, whether high school, whether university, whether special institution, is going to fail just because the initiatives do not originate or are not shared with the teachers, because the teacher is actually the source of information, is going to be the person of sharing that information, is going to be the intermediate person who's going to basculate any knowledge, any information to those learners, is going to make the facilitation. So these four elements here, which fall apart over the implementation failure, which is the absence of a shared vision. For me, I believe so that we cannot implement ICTs in any school without getting the insight, without getting the initiatives originated from the teachers, because the teachers, they know their needs, they know exactly the policy, how it works, they know the parameters, they know the variances, which is the second one over here on the right. When it's talking about the variances, actually it's the initiative that incorporates the technology effectively into the classroom instruction, and this must begin with the curriculum objectives. And here is a point, actually a very important one. Variances in objectives means that I cannot implement something, I cannot put technology to my teaching, for example to my syllabus or to my curriculum, if both my curriculum's objectives and the ICT's policy objectives are the same. So in the case that any one of them is different, so we're going to come kind of to the jeopardy, like say thought over, and the standards will not allow the teachers to readily create meaningful learning experiences to their students. So I believe here it's very important to care about the curriculum objectives before doing any implementation systems or implementation parameters. Same as for planning and leadership, and the same as for the lack of access and resources. Yeah, when it comes to planning and leadership, I'm not talking about leaders, I'm not talking about those genuine academicians, those people really are experts in ICTs, but we are talking about the sufficient in-servicing of the model of the technology. We cannot really just come out, bring a computer, kind of a smart board, and okay, we say this is ICTs. No, there should be kind of an analysis before. There should be a case study. We should have a shared vision. We should have kind of a time for professional instruction and planning. So the teachers need to have some time in order to plan their work, to plan how they're going to use the ICTs. They need to plan for the objectives. They need to plan for the kind of the outcomes and the outlooks they are going to get over any implementation. And as such, and here the point is the lack of access and resources. As I said, the problem is more hardware than software, but it's both. It's not only hardware, it's not a software, it's actually a frustration and an eventual abandonment of these initiatives, because someone just wants to do an initiative, but no one is behind, but no one is trying to search, no one is trying to give kind of adequate technology and access to these resources. I've got the means, but there is no way for that. And these four actually elements of the implementation failure, this is just the very beginning. So we are talking about actually, okay, 10 years later, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when the ICT model has started bridging some Algerian institutions borders, kind of in terms of education, in terms of the higher education. And here we find the problem. So as long as the implementation goes wrong, then later on actually the deploy, the application certainly is going to fail and fall into a jeopardy phase. Don't know if any one of you has got something to add for this or no. Anyone wants to add something?
Sorry, hello, this is Hicham.
Hello, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to add a point regarding what Rahil has already said. She talked about the use of mobile phones by the learners in class. And in fact, in this point, we need to change maybe the way some teachers think or in what they believe because some of them consider the use of phones in class by the learners as forbidden or something that is not allowed. So maybe we need to change the way of thinking or train them.
Absolutely, and this is the reason really I'm happy actually, because we've got to fall in the same understanding as really the points I've mentioned. As long as the ones of Rahil, as long as the ones of Faraz, Sundus, and everyone who participated, it's just an understanding. It's kind of a
Sorry, sir, for the interruption. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the teleconference you have organized. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. What's your name? Go ahead, please.
My name is Yasser. I hope everyone is safe in this lockdown. Well, concerning what the previous teacher has said about the use of the cell phones by the children, by the learners, in our schools, the use of the mobile phones are completely forbidden because they misuse it. So, for instance, they can use it to take pictures of teachers and send them to their friends. So this is why mobile phones are forbidden in schools. So as another option, we can use the data show, for instance, or use our computers or laptops and to share what we want with our students.
Absolutely. Yes, we heard you. Thank you so much, Yasser. And this is the reason why I've mentioned policy. When we are talking about policy, we are not talking about direction. We are not talking about instruction. A policy is actually what is really in the chaos over behind the scenes, what we do not see exactly, or the people who are taking the initiatives. Certainly, mobile phone is very useful for students, but it really depends on the instruction. It really depends on the policy, how the school, how the institution would like to introduce.
But at least they can use them at home.
Absolutely.
As an extra homework using their mobile phones.
Right. I just have to relate this directly to this slide. If you see remedies, we're talking about fostering some positive climate which is going to allow the teachers to engage in some risk-taking and modify the beliefs of the students on the way how to use technology. It's all about the implementation failure we've been talking about the slide before. Actually, the teachers and the administrators, the people who are really into the scene, who are really inside the mud, are other people who need to kind of link that technology initiative with the curricular goals. The teachers need to be provided with sufficient time, sufficient resources, opportunities, trainings, instruction, implementation in their classrooms or in everything they do, let's say in their workplace. And at the same time, doing the investigation of these values, kind of that we've spoken about, the use of the phone, the use of technology, the concept or the insight of teachers, kind of against the technology use, in regards to the technology integration, is actually available. The support is available. If you go to the internet, you can find every single information you would like to do, or you need actually to do a certain initiative. But what is the problem is that the professional development opportunities and the provision of the discourse. So this is it. And I personally agree. I've been leading a school back in sometimes in Georgia, and I arrived at the time of the kind of the deployment of some ICT tools, and I found out that the teachers really are the people who are taking the initiatives, are the people who are giving right instructions and who are doing the data analysis. Because it's, as I said, it's all about policy, and what we say, we as teachers, we are right, because we understand it more than anyone who's making more than anyone who's making the policy, more than anyone who's just sitting over and trying to design some tool or trying to design some new environment for the teachers or for a certain institution. So Remedies is really providing the opportunities and making, well, let's say, including the development and the opportunities in the provision and in the discourse, which is kind of the professional growth. Thank you so much, Yasser, for your audition. Okay, here we go again. Once more to the to the kind of the sequence of the obstacles. The second part is the lack of teacher support. And as you see, we've got 4 elements the same, 3 elements, by the way. The teaching conditions, the technological skills, and later the accountability. Well, when we talk about teaching conditions, I do not really mean the teaching the conditions you work in, the school about or whatever, things like this. But I really talk about the successful and the compatibility of the conditions of teaching in terms of curriculum, in terms of adequacy of accessing to the resources, accessing to the professional development, in terms of CPD in your institutions, which is really going to give a high access, kind of not access, but let's say a high ratio failure when the students come over to that computer analysis, or they can come to the computer literacy. And here the teachers are going to be a little bit reluctant to employ certain technology as an instructional tool, which means that the technology is available and must be reliable. So this is it. If we tend to make a certain deployment or certain compatibility in our learning between the curriculum and this new tool, we need to make sure that there is absolutely no outdated information that we are going to give the students, and at the same time the technology we are going to offer should be reliable. We should not give anything, we should not give everything, we should not give some and leave some. And here is what reflects the teacher support. I believe that if a teacher is not supported, even though you're going to give him, I don't know, whatever tools of ICTs in the world, he will certainly kind of find obstacles, find difficulties to get over any particular situation, because this is kind of a study, it's kind of a science. You're going to change the path of learning, you're going to change actually the new envision of how students are perceiving information or receiving information. It goes along with technological skills. This is actually the continuous support, the training, the CPD for teachers, and at the same time the accountability. I've been asking myself as well, why did I add accountability in a lack of teacher support element? Why? The answer is actually, if the teachers are held immediately responsible for changes that take time to show results, then the process is undoubtedly going to fail. And we know that in the world that significant changes to perspective, to pedagogy, to academic approaches, they require time, they require support, they require examples, and absolutely. And the technology that we use requires more than access and training. It requires involvement, it requires mentorship, it requires support, so that you can make a vision and clear attainable goals. So just for the people who are all participating in today's webinar, it's not on how to use ICTs. It's not on how to get great results of ICTs. It's not how to be the best teacher using ICTs. But it's all about how you're going to take part of it's all about how you're going to take part in that initiative, how you're going to make the students involved, how you're going to use that technology as a way of change, despite the fact it takes time, despite the fact it needs lots of efforts, but the process needs to succeed. In the case that any of the elements are missing for a teacher, then it's very likely they're going to fail. Let's say, talking about linguistically, we say they're going to fail because the process, let's say the whole process or the whole procedure of the implementation of the development has not been respected. And here it's maybe the time I would like to ask in one of the participants, what would you add? So the obstacles you think really are kind of a great board, keeping us kind of very, very distant from a certain level of using ICTs in our country. I'm talking about the Algerian context. Hello, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for your presentation. What I just want to add is that our students nowadays, we call them digital learners because they need to be engaged with technology everywhere and at any time. Therefore, teachers are always in need to use technology as an instructional tool, focusing on the skill rather than the tool. So when integrating technology in any lesson, teachers need to be more attentive in planning the content, where much needs with technology. For instance, the data shell is one module tool that replaces the whiteboard in most cases in classroom. Me as a teacher, I use the data shell because it saves me much more time, especially when I project any writing, pictures, or videos. But remember, smart teachers don't use technology to babysit their students. Instead, they use it to target specific skills to be implemented. They can use it insightfully to teach their students curiosity and engage them in the lesson to express themselves, to make questions, to doubt, and so on. This is just my concept. Thank you.
Yes. Same for me. I was going actually to highlight that I've mentioned the integration, I've mentioned the collaboration, and I've mentioned reframing the perceptions towards innovative technology that we implement to our students. That's exactly kind of a very detailed analysis and explanation to what I've mentioned a while ago. Thank you.
Sorry for interruption. Even the students or the learners, where they see the data show, they get happy and smiley because they don't know the purpose of using the data show. For them, using the data show is just to see pictures or listen to some chants or music or just to see a movie. But the most important thing for us is to work on their skills, especially the listening skill and the speaking skill.
Absolutely. And here it goes this way. ICTs in our schools, let's say supposing that we've implemented them the right way, there is absolutely kind of some of the obstacles we've been talking about have already kind of got marginalized, kind of a solved action plan. It's going really to add a value to the teaching and to the learning. So we are talking about two different concepts. It's not only for the teachers and it's not only for the learners, it's for both parties. And at the same time, it helps to enhance the effectiveness of learning. So here we are talking about a new methodology, which is how to enhance the learning, not the teaching. Later on, we come to the inception in our schools, let's say generally high school, primary, kindergarten, wherever, the students going to find the learning within new technology, enhanced environment, that the learning is very stimulating. They feel part of that learning. They feel kind of they are considered, they've got a place, and they are engaged. And this is very much far away from the traditional classroom environment. But let me add one thing. The tradition.
Sorry again. This is the prime principle of the CBA that we use in teaching English here in Algeria. You know that the learner is the key or the kernel of the teaching learning process.
Absolutely, it is. And I've mentioned here the traditional classroom environment, but I mentioned it positively because without the traditional classroom environment, without that experience, we wouldn't be able to make a certain analysis so that we employ in a very effective and efficient way the ICTs in our classes. Without the traditional classroom environment experience, we would not be able to see the stimulation rate on how fast or how effectively we could stimulate the learning for the students. And at the same time, talking about the enhancement, teachers who do not use ICTs, they are the most powerful teachers in terms of enhancing the learning, in terms of customizing the data information sharing to the students. This is actually by experience. I remember myself, I've been working with that ICTs, and at this very moment working with ICTs, even though I'm no longer kind of being very learners based working, but really traditional classroom environment brings and builds an extreme important experience to the teachers, which is going to pave for them the way on how to facilitate, to understand the way we could deploy the ICTs to our learners. Okay, so what would you add? Absolutely, what's your name? Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. I hope you are all well. Thanks for this webinar. My name is Sabrina. I want to say that first, not all learners have mobiles, and the minority they have, they don't use it to learn. And concerning the data show, it is not just for English teachers. Sometimes scientific teachers.
IoT teachers, yeah.
Pardon?
Carry on, excuse me.
Yes. Sometimes other teachers need also the data show. And if you are just needing the data show and the PC, not all teachers can have the PC. I just want to say that using ICT in class is very important, and it helps a lot because learners, as we say, tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I will learn. When we use the ICT, learners feel involved and they are more interested, and it is very helpful for them. Thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sir, please.
Hello, go ahead. Who's there?
Yes, Dr. Paris. I totally agree with this opinion because let me, sir, share my experience in the University of City, especially in the faculty of economics, because all the classroom in our faculty is there is a data show, or there is the equipment of the data show. So all the teacher use this technology in teaching. By this experience, I am used this technology. So it's very grateful and very useful in teaching. We can offer to the students the right idea with videos and also images, and also you can gain the time because you can do a lot of lessons by few time by comparing with the traditional way to teach.
And the results are guaranteed.
Yes, I totally. The results, it's perfect.
Thank you. Hello, go ahead.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We do hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I want to share with you my experience with ICTs. But first, let me tell you.
Hello, go ahead. We do hear you. We do hear you. Go ahead, please. There was someone speaking. Can you carry on, please? I guess that I've muted you by mistake.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead. We do hear you.
Yes. I said and in our school, all the classrooms we have data show, and even we have a laboratory. I
Miriam,
said before.
Miriam, we're having really difficulties to hear you. Your voice is being cut every single second. So could you repeat once more, please?
Sorry, Hicham, but maybe some participants need to mute that mic.
Right, yes.
Getting some noise.
Right, please mute yourself so that we really kind of avoid the destruction of the voice and echoes. Miriam, carry on, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you can carry on. We hear you.
Yes, what I want to say that ICTs, it is very important also for the teachers because so teachers are always making researches in order to use these ICTs. As Mrs. Aziz said, we have also
Miriam, we are sorry, but we really cannot hear you at all. Your voice is being cut. Hello? Okay, seems that Miriam's got a problem with her internet. I'm really sorry, but I've not been able to hear any word out of you there. Just you can stop me once more once you've got kind of once you are able to speak once more. Okay. Okay, thank you. Let me remind the participant that it's important for you to mute yourself so that we really could make sure that there is no echo, there is no distraction for the other participants listening and taking notes over the webinar's speaking person, anyone, myself or any other participant. So going through kind of another channel now and to talk about the changes in teaching and the learning as a result of ICT. There's kind of a bunch of information I've collected from everywhere, from my experience also in some countries. Well, lots of people, academicians, schools or institutions, they see that the major changes is the way actually the teachers and the learners view and practice the teaching and the learning, and also the shift from the traditional kind of fashioned methodology of teaching to the new one, which is the ICT based. But at the same time, everyone still got an opinion. It really depends between one country to another. It depends on how the people still perceive the influence of ICTs over the learning and the teaching process. And some of them, they see it as a tool for kind of whole school improvement. I mean, ICT does not improve only the learning process, but also it improves the school's performance. It improves the rate or the success rate in every school. Some others, they see it as a powerful medium for transforming the teaching and the learning. When I say a powerful medium, it's kind of a weapon that the people use in terms of their local country prosperity, local country development processes, development challenges they have taken along with some political, along with some policy-related patterns and actions. And it really it really depends from one person to another. Like for example, there is a school in the USA which is saying that it's a shift from philosophy which support the transmission model of instruction. So people that they're still kind of focused on that transmissional model of instruction and model of teaching, and they say that this one was kind of a shift of philosophy, and it really depends on how they perceive it. It really depends on the benefits it brings to them, but absolutely it stays an opinion, and it stays what they think and the way they perceive the impact and the change that the ICTs has brought to their education institution. And at the same time, I would like to add my personal opinion is that ICT is really kind of a constructivism model in which the learners, they're going to construct their own knowledge out of their experiences. We believe that even in the CBA, even in the TBT, even in the TBL or the CBL methodologies or approaches, learners are the way and are the real source of information, and they are the impact, they are the effect. So we're talking about ICT as a way of constructivism. It helps the students build the knowledge the way they want, the way they feel it actually relative to their learning ability, and at the same time it's going to create their own experience without being kind of in need to wait for someone to transmit for them something or try to dig something into their mind. And this all relates to pedagogical processes which are going through the deployment process of the ICTs. I would also be glad to hear the opinions of all the participants who are present about the changes that you think the ICT has brought already or is going to bring in the near future, in the very far future, to the educational system, to your classroom, to your job, to your day-to-day activities, as well as to your learners. Anyone? Hello. Perfect. Thank you, son. Does anyone else to share with us their responding? Hello, go ahead. What's your name? Hello, please, we do hear you. Go ahead. What's your name? Yasmina? Is that right? Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Yasmin. Anyone else, please? Hello, go ahead. What's your name? Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of it really improves the engagement and it improves the knowledge retention. So when talking about ICT as an integrated, let's say as an integrated process to your lessons, the students are going to become more engaged in their work. And the way they get engaged, they get creative, they get to be innovative, they get to provide kind of different opportunities to themselves and to the colleagues around, and at the same time they're going to find it fun and enjoyable in terms of the various things or the various ways it really presents to them to learn. Thank you. Anyone else, please? Hello, Forrest, go ahead. Thank you, Faris. Hello again. Thank you. Thank you for your addition. Anyone else, please? Hello, we do hear you. Go ahead. Absolutely, Murad. That's exactly the real impact of ICTs and its potential with the education field as a manifold system. This is what we call manifold system of integrating the ICTs into the classroom, since it positively affects all the stakeholders in the education field. We have already kind of passed 6 minutes over the agreed time of our webinar. Unfortunately, we've really enjoyed the time together all discussing this amazing topic. The happy thing is that we still got a second session, a third session in the coming week and the week later, in which we are going to explore more and more the integration of ICTs into the English language classroom and its integration as a normal process. I would like to take the opportunity to invite you all once more to attend our webinar on the 23rd of July and the 30th of July. I hope to see you over there, and I have to thank you, every one of you, for taking the time and afforded it to join this lovely experience. Thank you so much. Let me just add one thing. Do not forget to write your names on the chat thread, please. Do not forget to write your names on the chat thread.
Please, where can we write our names?
You can write your names on the chat thread. You can see my screen here, exactly. So write your names so that we can submit them correctly to the certificates and you receive them with the correct information. Thank you. Hello, go ahead.